Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first Idea Forum in a series called Next Movement, co-hosted by the Presser Foundation and American Composers Forum Philadelphia chapter. My name is Teresa Rogers, and I serve as Executive Director of the Presser Foundation. Special thanks to Dustin Hurt, who has provided marketing and technical support to produce this series. This is a webinar version of Zoom, and that just means that participants are not seen, but do have the capability to ask a question and provide comments in the chat. Dustin and I will be monitoring the Q&A window, and we'll do our best to ask questions on behalf of participants. All 5 Idea Forums will be recorded and made available for future viewing, and we'll be in communication with links to those to access. Each presentation will be 25 minutes long with 5 minutes for questions and answers. We hope to wrap up within an hour and a half today. The impetus for Next Movement came from so many conversations I've had with executive directors, artistic directors, development directors over the last 5 months since COVID hit. People shared with me both their struggles and their triumphs. It did not take long to realize that people were craving interaction with their colleagues in the field to uncover best practices, suggestions for technology, ideas for creative program delivery, and thoughts on the future. And I must say that when I took this concern to the trustees of the Presser Foundation, there was immediate interest to support our grantee organizations beyond grants. And thus, Next Movement was formulated. 26 organizations answered the call for proposal to present, targeting music educators, music performers, music presenters. We selected 10 organizations to present at 5 Idea Forums, 2 for music educators, 2 for music performers, and 1 for music presenters. Today's session is the first focused on music presenters. We are so grateful to Ars Nova Workshop and Lyric Fest for being open to share their creativity and for working alongside us to develop the presentations today. We're going to start with Ars Nova Workshop, who answered the question, how do you draw a community together and identify with a place when people are withdrawing and staying at home? Ars Nova rethought how to create a sense of place at the Woodlands by offering a mobile studio, walking tours with original music, and activities accompanied to live music. So without further delay, I'm so pleased to present to you Ars Nova Workshop, Mark Christman, and Celeste Danucci.
Thanks a lot for having us. I'm Mark Christman, Executive Director and Artistic Director of Ars Nova.
And I am Celeste Danucci. I am the Director of Strategy and Development for Ars Nova.
So a little background, Ars Nova is celebrating its 20th anniversary. We are a jazz and contemporary music presenting organization, having presented the biggest names in jazz and new music. We've done commissions, one-off festivals, composer portrait events, site-specific work, exhibitions, commercial recordings. And about 5 years ago, 15 years into our history, we started to invest in more larger and contextual projects. For instance, we have a major exhibition opening at the ICA this fall, a related book, a podcast in the work with one of Malcolm Gladwell's guys. And so, you know, it kind of brings us to where we are now. We started to prioritize directing resources to developing new audiences, as opposed to a lot of the DIY and passive marketing that we had done prior. Philadelphia is, of course, home to many of the great architects of the great American invention. And as an organization, we feel—
He's talking about jazz, by the way.
I am. And more.
Yeah.
Thank you, Celeste. But as an organization, of course, we are really in a privileged place to be part of the evidence of the towering African-American achievements that permeate this country. And so, it's, to say the very least, it's our responsibility to find ways to assure that there's more diversity in our audiences. So that kind of brings us to what we're going to talk about primarily today: our relationship with the Woodlands, and our interest in developing new audiences in new places.
Yeah.
So.
Hi. Yeah, as Mark said, we had started to kind of pivot from doing this kind of, if you build it, they will come, kind of speaking to the audiences that were regulars and the others that were somewhat familiar with Ars Nova, and really trying to understand how to bring in new audiences. And of course, the William Penn Foundation came up with a grant called New Audiences, New Places, and so we've discovered that was exactly the sort of thing that we were looking to do. Mark had worked for a long time at the University City District and had a good relationship with the Woodlands. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Woodlands, but it is a gorgeous historic cemetery in West Philadelphia, which is one of the places. Ars Nova had sort of started in West Philadelphia. Mark lives there, and he was basically running things out of his house for quite a while. So, but as we had moved offices away from West Philadelphia into South Philadelphia, and as a lot of venues around town, there's been a lot of fluctuation in what venues are available. We don't have our own venue, so of course we partner with other people to put music in other venues. So anyway, we were finding that our audiences were kind of drifting away from the West Philadelphia audiences, and we wanted to reinvest in that. So the original intent was that we were going to work with the Woodlands to bring people from the surrounding areas, the neighborhoods around there, into the Woodlands in a sort of escalating series of programs to sort of try to do some real networking, build a network within the area, and get people sort of, even as much by word of mouth as almost by anything else, to start coming to the Woodlands more and more. And then, of course, both COVID and the BLM protests happened. And so all of a sudden we were faced with, what are we going to do? How do we think about place? We're supposed to be instilling a sense of place for these neighborhoods, and we're supposed to be helping them identify with the Woodlands as being theirs. As a cemetery, there have been barriers to entry, not so much from the Woodlands, their administration, but just simply there's, of course, everybody has ideas about cemeteries and like going into cemeteries and that sort of thing. And we wanted to make sure that people understood that it was a place for them, that aside from being a gorgeous historic cemetery, it's also the biggest green space in West Philadelphia. It's 54 acres of beautiful river views and old growth trees and just amazing stuff in there. So anyway, so once this happened, we really had to decide, what our values were, what it is that we really wanted to bring to this project, given the limitations of the current situation. And so what we decided was that some of the things that were really important to us at this time, especially, were we wanted to pay artists. That's what we do. We make it possible for artists to perform. We wanted to make sure that our resources were getting to artists. We also, of course, wanted to activate and leverage that sense of place at the Woodlands as an outdoor space, because it just so happens that one of the limitations of this time is that people do want to get outdoors, and they're not always familiar with the kind of breadth of places that they can do that and safely socially distance. And in fact, Philadelphia Magazine just named the Woodlands as one of the things, one of the discoveries from the pandemic, from the isolation, one of the things that they discovered that they were happy that they discovered, because it's a great place to go for a kind of away from the city feeling, even though it's right in the middle of the city, and have a sort of contemplative moment. There are a lot of really unique aspects of the Woodlands that we wanted to make sure to leverage and to get people to appreciate. One of them being that there's a beautiful historic mansion in the center of the Woodlands. In fact, it started as an estate for William Hamilton back in the in the 18th century. So that was all uppermost in our minds. And also, we became really, really aware of and concerned about and attuned to the idea of open spaces as safe spaces, especially right after the Chris Cooper incident in Central Park, where the African-American bird watcher had a woman call the police on him just because he asked her to put her dog on a leash. And just the sort of ramifications of that and the idea of things that we frankly had not thought of. Jessica Baumert, who's the executive director of the Woodlands, shared a very interesting article with us about how, the idea of open spaces being accessible to everyone and sort of a free and open space was not necessarily true. That Black lives are on the line more than we realize in those spaces. So that was one of the things that we definitely wanted to address and wanted to come up with ways to remedy or to at least be mindful of those things. Those were our priorities for this project. And so given those priorities, we had to sort of rethink the kinds of programming that we were going to be doing there. Mark can sort of give you a rundown of kind of the original stuff that we had thought we would be doing, and how we kind of pivoted there. Mark?
Yeah, all of the programming that we hope to do at the Woodlands will be in deep collaboration with the neighborhood, with other organizations, with other curators, and a really wide spectrum of partners. We think that's key. We're really looking for this project to provide us with an opportunity to almost go door to door with our work and with the community. So. I think that hopefully there will be a time in the not too distant future we'll be able to execute some of these larger scale programs. But you can imagine at the Woodlands, us coming together with the neighborhood to present an Ethiopian jazz festival and bazaar, mindfulness and music activities, intimate concerts in the mansion, and maybe even exploring deep listening and minimalism and the drone, using a lot of the context and the stories that exist, that reside quite literally in the Woodlands as context for building context-rich activities. We are an organization that loves context, loves the site specificity of this opportunity, and we like doing uniquely Philadelphian things. So we'll continue to double down on that. Maybe developing an inclusive community orchestra and working with artists to develop installations that could be experienced, maybe indefinitely at the Woodlands. So, of course, we had to pivot a bit, especially with the pandemic, and how are we going to do that? We kind of took stock of the many assets of the Woodlands, the gorgeous mansion, the outdoor spaces. We took stock of our own assets and what we do best. And I think this is where we can maybe introduce some slides.
Bringing them up now.
Great. You can, for those who may or may not have been, at the Woodlands before, you'll be seeing some beautiful images of the inside of the historic mansion. You can imagine us bringing artists as residents in there, commissioning them, really creating a safe space for them to create, to record, to collaborate. And they'll be doing it, although these are empty spaces, they'll be doing it with the technology and the infrastructure that Ars Nova can bring. Kind of a mobile studio that will allow artists and composers and ensembles to come together, to work through new ideas, to present them again in this safe and beautiful and iconic and uniquely Philadelphian environment, and for us to document them and record them in frankly, kind of slick ways that can ultimately be presented rather quickly and disseminated internationally. I think we can move along to a video that illustrates the sort of, although modest, still higher quality production that we can offer to our audiences and to our artists, of course. We'll of course, am I back on?
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll be producing hopefully dozens of videos like this that can essentially live forever and support hopefully the careers of the artists that we work with indefinitely.
Mark, can I just jump in just for a second here? I just wanted to point out that video was made in another historic mansion that we have used often, the Philadelphia Art Alliance, and so it has its own particular ambiance and the beauty of the space inside, and I think that video does a great job of giving that sense of these musicians in that particular space, and that's really also what we're going for with the mansion at the Woodlands. Sorry.
That's right. Thank you. I meant to say that. And that production was facilitated by a production party of two, and that's essentially the kind of so-called modest approach that we're taking. I think that we can probably move on to that last slide. With the kind of mobile studio and the videos that we'll be facilitating and creating in that environment that you saw through those slides, you can imagine us also doing live discussions or book clubs, obviously live streaming. We're already enlisted to present some live streaming live from the Woodlands for the Winter Jazz Fest, which is one of the biggest jazz festivals in the world and associated with APAP in New York. So it's going to provide us with kind of a soft landing for a lot of opportunities for not only West Philadelphia artists, but Philadelphia musicians. But we're also going beyond that. We're thinking about developing walking tours that connect at the intersection of nature and the Woodlands history and the history of jazz and music in our city, and especially West Philadelphia. We're working on an actual live concert in the early mornings. In the early morning to celebrate the 100th birthday of Charlie Bird Parker, and also connecting it to the Black Birders community and having a very early morning concert or two. You can see in this drone image the large tree canopy in the center will be under that will be a,
this is called Center Circle in the Woodlands there. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
And the way in which the Woodlands was designed has these kind of natural, socially distanced environments that people or couples can reside in, you know, while they're enjoying that performance. We also hope to have some bird watching, of course, activities and giveaways and that sort of thing.
Can I just offer a little bit more detail here?
Yeah.
If you look that very large tree in the center, which is it's very tall, it's actually an immense tree with other trees underneath it. There are dogwoods underneath it. And what we're going to be doing is presenting musicians around that tree, basically. And then if you'll notice all of these little boxed off areas, those are actually family grave plots. And there are natural walls around them. As you can see, they're all sort of delineated, physically delineated. And so they make for kind of natural places where one family can, you know, sit in one of those spaces. And there's a sense not only of distance, but of a barrier. It's not a high barrier. It's not something that, you know, it's visible, but it's not obstructive in any way. And so this is kind of leveraging those physical features of the Woodlands to enable, you know, a sort of more collective experience where people can be together and yet apart. So just wanted to add that. This is an amazing shot of the Woodlands. I love this shot. So
I think we can probably wrap it up right there, right, Celeste?
yeah, I think so. We're just, you know, thinking just about the many ways that we're going to be exploring the sense of place and history at the Woodlands, the history that's there and the history that isn't there. You know, there's definite ties in there to West Philadelphia as a center for jazz. It's a very important center for the history of jazz, not only in Philadelphia, but just jazz as the amazing thing that it is. So, you know, it's a wonderful opportunity for us to be able to tie in a sense of history, a sense of outdoors and nature, a sense of the present, a sense of Philadelphia and Philadelphia history, and just, you know, the amazing music that we present. So, yes, thank you.
Well, and one more thing I'll add is that partnerships in our 20-year history have been instrumental in our success and our growth. And this project is just, you know, another extension of that. So we're also here ready to hear from anybody about potential collaborations regarding this, these activities at the Woodlands and more.
Mm-hmm.
Great, and I'll just hop in here. If anyone has a question, they can put it in the Q&A window or the chat window, and I'll pass it along. I do have one question that was passed along to me. Can you talk a little bit about how you're thinking about generating revenue, or such as ticket income or replacing ticket income, or thinking about ways to support this? Is it just, for example, foundation and grant support, or are there other sort of new and innovative ways of funding programs that you're looking at?
Mark, I think you could talk about the what we did with the organization in Chicago, maybe.
Yeah, I think that there are likely to be live streaming events that will solicit either ticketing revenue or donations kind of in real time for those events. We've done pretty well without in the past and been able to pay artists again relatively well for performances that we've live streamed for free. Yes, institutional giving is going to be very important and will be a major component to this. I think right now we are really focused. This project has never, at least for its first phase or even 2 phases, our interest is to get programming to people and for people to experience the Woodlands and our work at no cost. And in fact, we're looking at ways to build relationships with the community and be great neighbors. And often that means us having to figure out where the resources to facilitate the development of those relationships come from.
And I just want to add too, we did have the experience, Mark curated an evening of jazz for, what was the name of the organization, Mark? In Chicago?
ESS in Chicago, the
Okay.
Experimental Sound Studio.
And the idea behind that was that it was offered for free, but that people understood that when they were watching it, that any donations that they made went to the musicians. And we were able to raise, a respectable amount of money to be able to pay. Mark had six acts that night in a 3-hour span. And we were able to pay all of them fairly decently for, a half an hour gig, simply based on the donations that people made while the free streaming was happening. So it's an interesting model. Give it for free, and it inspires the generosity of the people who really appreciate what they're seeing.
It's sort of the PBS model in some ways.
Yeah, except we weren't doing a drive. So
yeah. Another question, which I think we know the answer to, but maybe I'll sort of rephrase it. Someone from PIFRO, the ensemble, I assume, not some random person named PIFRO. They asked the question, are you interested in collaborating with non-jazz ensembles? I would extend that question to say, maybe you can talk a little bit about how, maybe in some ways like the pointlessness of like genre boundaries these days, or maybe more specifically your approach to genre and not genre.
Yeah, we have evolved into an organization that presents much more than improvised music. I think that even when you think about the jazz continuum, it's limiting to think about artists improvising on stage. So yes, Ars Nova is the sort of organization that was planning on presenting at its October festival that's not happening this year, artists like Meredith Monk and Terry Riley. So we're interested, we're jazz and not jazz. And of course, over the years, we've presented ensembles like ICE or the Jack Quartet, many things that even Dustin and Bowerbird have done, similar intersections there. Orchestra 2001, the music of John Adams, for instance. So John Luther Adams, yeah. So the answer to your question is yes.
Great, thank you. One last question, I think, and we'll move on for time. Someone asked specifically, how are you dealing with mask wearing, et cetera, for the audience and musicians for these outside performances?
I mean, we've actually been working with the Woodlands on that. There will be some kind of check-in for these things, and you know, mask wearing is going to be required. You know, we haven't gotten into a situation yet where we've had to enforce anything. So, and I don't know if the Woodlands has either. But I think that's definitely something we're working in context with them.
We are lucky enough to be working with a public space that is sophisticated and, you know, trying to understand the world in which we're operating in every hour of the day. So the Woodlands already has the infrastructure necessary to deal with this. Signage is a major component. There is essentially one entryway into the Woodlands, and there's a lot of opportunity to interact with the public and to bring clarity to the situation and to the responsibilities of all people involved.
Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. Thanks for your presentation. I'm going to turn it back over to Teresa, who's going to introduce the Lyric Festival, but stick around and maybe we'll have some more questions at the end. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark and Celeste. While Ars Nova is exploring the concept of place, Lyric Fests are conquering social distance one song at a time through visual storytelling. And to date, they've made 30 videos disseminated via Constant Contact and posted both on Facebook and YouTube with the intention of keeping a connection and great art at the center of their work. So today we have with us Suzanne Duplantis and Ben Robinson from Lyric Fest.
Great, and they're just queuing up now. I think they're all set. Take it away.
Okay, hi everybody. I loved learning about Ars Nova. That's great to hear about. So my name is Suzanne Duplantis, and I am founder and artistic director of Lyric Fest, along with Laura Ward, who's actually not with us today. I'm here today with Ben Robinson, who is our new managing director, who comes with a whole bunch of wonderful qualities besides his ability to manage our organization. So Lyric Fest we founded 17 years ago, and we our main purpose is to reinvigorate the song world, to reinvigorate the experience of a song concert, and to try to reach broader audiences and try to tell stories and do thematic programs where we build a certain theme and we build all the songs around this theme, and we're you know, we're making it sort of a different experience for the listener than the traditional song recital. Not that there's anything wrong with that. So so what happened when this pandemic hit is the same thing that happened for everyone, which is that, you know, mayhem and all performances were canceled, and, you know, to the point that Ars Nova made, we also felt it was important to pay our artists, and so we were unable to pay the full fee, but we did pay everyone who was canceled a partial fee, and we felt really good about that. And we feel like it's important to do that. We were left with a desire to honor our mission. Our mission is to bring people together through the shared experience of song. We were very concerned about keeping our community, to be keeping content coming to our community, but here we were unable to sing. And you know, the research is showing more and more singing is really one of the hot items, you know, hot things that can't be done right now. So that put us in a bit of a pickle. So we looked at our resources. Our resources were a 17-year archive of fabulous recordings from all of the concerts that we had been doing. And we realized that we had an opportunity we have been wanting to find a way to feature all of these, all of our archives, fabulous performances that we wished people could look at again. There was never time. There was never any time to bring these up when we were in the trenches of producing the concerts, and when we weren't producing the concerts, in the planning stages and all of that. So this pandemic forced our hand and offered us this opportunity to go back to our archives and figure out how we could show all of that. So the first thing that I want to show you is a movie that I made recently, and this I got ahead of myself. So what we decided to do was to make song videos, to go back to these pieces that we have had access to, and create videos that we can disseminate on Facebook and put on YouTube and send out in emails. And it's been really quite a process. So to cut back to the one that I want to show you first, this one is a bit somber. I think I made this one about 3 weeks ago or something. It was at a point where things were really, really looking sad and difficult to deal with the epidemic, and this is what came out of us. This was a piece that we had commissioned and we were revisiting. So this is A Dying Eye, commissioned by Lyric Fest, of Darren Hagen, who was trained in Philadelphia. So we'll cut to that.
And I think one of the things that we've been getting at is that Lyric Fest has this tradition of combining music and this very rich visual element with different components of what we have to offer, and touching on history, touching on different topics. And this medium of exploration represented an opportunity to go back into our archive and see what we have in terms of our marketing collateral, and to put a fresh new spin on it and offer it to our audience, and change the perspective on what our history is while looking forward to what our future is, even inside of this crazy time.
Yeah, so it offers us an opportunity to show the songs that we've commissioned, which is a very big part of what we do, and also to put that next to, hand in hand with the standard repertory that we also like to show in a given concert. We don't segregate our concerts out and have all new music or, all standard repertoire. We like to mix it all up, and we find it's a good way to have our audiences not self-select out of a certain type of music and into another, that things that they think they might not like, they would actually, we're convinced, like, if they just see some of it. So,
and of course it gives perspective on the continuum that is art song. You know, Lyric Fest is refreshing art song, looking at art song as an entirely old and yet brand new art form. And in so doing, we have to look at the history of what it is and how our history of this art form connects to the present. And these visuals that we've been able to incorporate have sort of made us rethink this. And what I love about this upcoming clip that we're about to show with Giuseppe Verdi is that there's this very modern take. Suzanne found a whole bunch of very fun images, and together we collaborated on building a video that is very modern in terms of its look, but we're dealing with repertoire that is from the 19th century. So this is Stornello by Giuseppe Verdi.
Ben?
We had fun putting that one together. Yeah. It got a little bit of that coronavirus pent-up frustration out.
Yeah. So the other thing is, it not only, not only are we mining our archives, but we're reminding, it gives us the opportunity to remind other people of, things that they saw that were fun. They're shareable links. We can send them out. The word gets off going in all different kinds of directions. And so it's given us an opportunity to broaden our reach, really. I mean, we perform live music in Philadelphia. Occasionally we travel outside of Philadelphia. But this way, when we're doing a video of a certain singer who might live outside of Philadelphia by a certain composer who might live outside of Philadelphia, all of a sudden the reach starts getting broader and broader. And if it's funny and cute enough, it gets sent to California and beyond. So we've had a lot of success of people, even agents, asking if they can put our videos onto the websites of the singers who sing them. And so we love that kind of reach, and we love the opportunity that this has given us, or the realization that this can move forward. This is an opportunity of the moment that we never would have imagined, that can really change and guide a little bit of where we might want to go with this. So, and the other, go ahead.
So we had been thinking, about different ways to include the visual elements too into the concerts, and thinking about projections, and there's these host of moving image technologies, whether or not it's actual film or if it's just sort of, manipulation of still images or whatever. And this is something we were actively exploring already, but as I'm sure our fellow arts administrators can sympathize with it, it's so busy. It's very hard to learn new technology. And it can be very expensive too. But this bit of a downturn in what the cycle was at first gave us this opportunity to explore this medium and fill out this sort of ambition while at the same time reaching our audience when we had to cancel concerts at the end of the season. And what we're getting to is ultimately preparing them for what the future is. And I know we're getting to that a little bit more in a second, but some of our legacy has been really wrapped up in commissioning new works. Suzanne, do you want to talk more about that, especially as it involves making people laugh?
Yeah, well, so two funny videos together. This next one is a song that we commissioned. We did a concert that was called Sincerely Yours, and we commissioned 9 composers to set prose or to set letters instead of poetry, which would be the norm. The video we're going to show you next, I think, is genius. It was made by Ben. This was a letter that was that the composer's friend's son wrote to try to get into Stanford. It was a prompt. Everybody knows that you have to write these prompts when you're trying to get into college. So the prompt was, write a letter to your future roommate. And Lori Laitman had been tasked with, writing a song that was a letter. She asked if we could do this one. We said, sure. And this is what she came up with, and this is what Ben created.
And we should add that he got into Stanford, too.
He got in, yeah.
As if we had put up a barbershop quartet, hardly noticed. Hardly noticed most of their friends, most of their friends, most of their friends act this way. I won't even mention the first time they took me to Macbeth. It wasn't until the lights dimmed I learned the entire play wasn't telling it. What I am trying to say is I look forward to living with the same person for a change. No odd habits or quirks of yours will bother me.
So we didn't have any fun putting that together at all.
Yeah, yeah. So it froze up a little bit at the end, but you can catch the whole thing on YouTube. And we created a YouTube channel called hashtag Conquering Social Distance, one song at a time. And all of our videos are there. We started to realize
one of our playlists, and there's several other playlists with other content as well.
Yeah, and you know, we were finding that you could take the pulse of the day or the pulse of the week and figure out what people needed, and that's how we selected songs. So we thought we'd talk a little tiny bit about the how-to of what we did. We are learning on the fly. I do work in design, so I have the creative suites, and I work with Photoshop, but I had never worked with iMovie. So Ben started it himself and then pushed me out of the nest, and I tried my first one, which took me probably 20 hours to do my first one. It was very simple, but I needed to learn. And I find now, and I think Ben will agree, that we're limited by our imagination now. I mean, there's so much that you can do, as much as you can imagine. If you have the time, you can figure out how to do it. And so that has been a really interesting, an interesting endeavor. It's been a wonderful opportunity to learn a new thing and to figure out how we're going to take this forward.
It's been a great opportunity to learn new technology. We're working out of Final Cut Pro as well, and we're investing now in stock video sites and stock photography so that we can have more access to more images. That gives us more ability to do different things with different images, and ultimately we're building up our capacity for the being able to do projections, being able to incorporate our audience in this new kind of visual way. And at the same time, as we're heading in, I know we're going to talk about our season upcoming soon and how we're sort of, offering a little bit of a different flavor this year, but we are preparing our audience for this virtual presentation and showing them that this kind of lightning in a bottle thing that is Lyric Fest, this intersection of fabulous music and this really fascinating, intricate poetry and visual arts and this sense of community can be achieved, but it's just, at least for safety's sake right now, going to be a little bit different than how we've usually gotten there. We're going to do a dream within a dream, I know, in a second, but you want to talk a little bit more about fall plans?
Yeah, I want to say that this is informing how we're going to move forward. obviously we can't perform live. So one of the trademarks of Lyric Fest is breaking down the fourth wall, talking to our audiences, having multiple singers. So none of that can happen. But what can happen is one singer in a room with a pianist, socially distanced, where they will talk to us about, they're going to be creating programs, very short programs. The whole thing will be about 25 minutes long. And what Ben and I will do is create sort of a song movie out of it. So it'll be parts of it where you'll see the singer and the pianist performing. Parts of it will be movies like you're seeing right now. Parts of it will be the artist just talking about the content and making the connections that are usually made in Lyric Fest concerts. It's not strictly just about the song and the poetry and everything. It's more a very broad sense of the humanities and biography and funny stuff and life and connections, unexpected connections. So we're hoping that we will be making short movies, short song movies, post-produced little concerts that will be aired on a certain night, and we'll send the buzz out that the airing is going to happen. We will have worked probably for weeks or a month on trying to produce these until they're a really nice experience. And then a week and a half after that first airing, we would like to have a watch party. So we'll air it together. The artist will be there. We'll do it in a Zoom format. We'll watch it, and then we'll just be together afterwards. And so people can talk to our artists, and they can give feedback and ask more questions. Like our first program is going to be some songs of Benjamin C.S. Boyle, settings of Edgar Allan Poe. So that's a great opportunity to bring in a person who's had, a history here in Philadelphia, important American poet that had broad reach. So the Poe thing sort of helps to segue right into Dream. Do we have a time to do the Dream within a Dream, Ben?
I think so, yes.
Okay, so this next song, two things about this. One is that it's a Edgar Allan Poe poem. It's written by a Philadelphia composer, again, Darren Hagen. This was an early song of Darren Hagen. It was one of my favorite memories of Lyric Fest when I was looking back at all of the things, and I really wanted to feature this in some way. And the other thing is that I wanted to start collaborating with visual artists, and this has the visual art, the work of Georgiana Lenson, who is a wonderful Philadelphia painter. And when I think of the sound world of this song, the sound world of this song looks like her painting. So I approached her, and I have approached several other artists, at least 5 or 6 of them, to ask to use their paintings. And again, that's another way that I can expand our reach and get our videos into other worlds and other communities. So Georgiana allowed us to use her paintings, and this is Dream Within a Dream, an Edgar Allan Poe song, very rhapsodic poem by Darren Hagen.
And departing from your
what I love about like what this project has done for these songs is it makes us think about the song differently. And then we look at the painting and it makes us see the painting from a whole new perspective. It incorporates the circles of the different people who went into creating that. It reminds our audience of what we have done, gives us a new perspective on where we are going. And at the same time, it has just given us this escape, this joy, and this sort of real like thing to look forward to in coming out of this thing as a newly vibrant organization, a vibrant organization that has been made, you know, we've invested in ourselves at this time, and we're, you know, looking forward to coming out on the other side of this pandemic with more to offer.
Right. And you know, the idea of still creating art while we, you know, have our hands tied. This is a great opportunity to just keep active as an artist. And then, so moving forward with the concerts in the fall, which will be these short one-person concerts that will be, you know, little mini song performances. The next step will be, how is this going to inform when we do go back to live performances, you know, God willing, May, June, July of next year, which we're planning on. When we do, how can we use this? Not only can we use visuals in the concert performance, I think that's probably going to be a given, and we probably are going to do that. But how can we also reach these broader audiences that have come into us through this project? We're exploring what kind of hybrid experience we can offer, because there will be some people who will not be comfortable coming back to live performances for quite a while. And we don't want, once we begin live work, we don't want to all of a sudden cut off those people who are connected to us through this kind of work.
It's an opportunity to build a national audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is. It helps us in every way, and it keeps us creating art. And in addition to do, you know, I'm mindful of paying our singers. So, you know, we're paying our people who are making these concerts in the fall and certainly performing later. And a sidebar, which we're not really talking about today, is this is an opportunity right now to record safely. Sort of like ours, the group before was doing, I want to say Ars Nova. So, you know, recording is something that can be done safely. So we are also doing that, and that's a way to support our singers. And we're also commissioning music very actively right now so that we're supporting our composers. So that's...
one more song in closing for all the germaphobes out there, I think, and that'll be a great transition to our question.
Questions. Just a little something to leave you with.
Yeah. Infrastructure by David Sisko.
On the corner of 5th and 2nd, it's from that cloudy pile and lunch tray tower that's been standing behind the counter all day. I'm not sure about wearing shorts on the subway and taking a seat. I'm not sure about taking the Times off the top of the stack outside the newsstand. I'm not sure just how clean the toilet is in a house where everything is so organic. They don't use less toil to wash the floor. But I'm really not sure when I step down the sidewalk looming like fate. I'm not sure. I've got a history in this city.
Just a little tag in. That was by Paul Sperry. Is a very famous tenor who was known for commissioning a lot of music himself, and he commissioned that song, and we performed it on a lyric concert where he came, as he said, as a septuagenarian to come sing with us. So we were honored to have him. So that's our presentation.
Great, thanks so much. We do have a few questions. I'll start with one that is in the Q&A window from Jeffrey Cornelius with the Temple. Hi. He asked the question, are there performance rights issues or permissions or compensation issues related to the reuse of the performances beyond their original? And maybe this also applies to images, because I did see you had some notes about you are using stock images. So maybe you can talk a little bit about your thoughts and your any issues you encountered with both audio, the songs, and the visuals in YouTube.
It's a great question. And Suzanne, do you have the thoughts?
I was going to address the images first. As I said, anything that I use and that's collaborative with an artist, they have signed off on, and their website is listed at the end of the video, and they're credited, and they have agreed to let us do it. The other, we pay for stock. We have two. We either get the free stuff, or we have, as Ben said earlier in our presentation, that we have started to pay for stock video and stock still photos,
which gives oversweeping license to use, again and again.
Yeah, for artists, we always check with the artist who is singing, and we pay royalties when we're doing a song that we have commissioned. I mean, we pay all the royalties. I don't know if you want to give specifics on that, Ben.
Just in general, a lot of the images we're using too are public domain images, and we sort of have gone to Wikimedia Commons, Pexels.com. There's a lot of sites that do allow you to have access to this, because once you start pulling from a site like Getty Images, it becomes really, really expensive, as wonderful as those images are.
We did actually buy one image from Getty.
Yeah.
In the first video. I fell in love with that, so we bought it.
But we're trying to make sure that this is still affordable. Specifically to the other contractual issues, our contracts cover a blanket use of the artist's likeness and the ability for us, if we record sound or video, to be able to use that artist. And so we have contractually asked for permission beforehand with all of this. And then what we're doing too is we're continuing to look at all these things, is look at the sync rights, which are particularly applicable to adding things to live streams or virtual performances. And we have been consulting with, we had some really fantastic pro bono legal advice that we got so that we can really understand all the legalities going into this. And it's definitely something that if you are doing it yourself, you need to thoroughly research it, because if you are not doing it properly and you are not contracted in the right way, it could leave you open to problems. The worst case scenario would be, real legal problems, but it could also simply be that somebody just can force you to take something down. We're doing this the right way. We're asking for permission. We are getting people to contractually sign off on these things. And
so they have done that before when they performed it, but then out of a courtesy, we send them the materials, we create the videos, send it to them, say, do we have your permission? And this would be to the, to the composer, to the performers, and to the artists.
Yes.
So,
Great. Thanks for answering that. And that's a great answer, especially for a panel funded by a music publishing company. Or foundation based on that. We have a couple other questions here, which I just, maybe I'll, sorry, I'm just reading them. Okay, so I guess one question that comes from Pifaro is, have you been thinking about really working with other artists, you know, to do these videos? Or are you thinking about doing them all in-house? Pifaro mentions they have 30+ years of audio only archives, and I think they're curious what they might do.
I would love to talk to Pifaro and just share our process and our, you know, what we've learned and what we are learning. I'm a big proponent of sharing, and I think it would be really cool to, you know, to put video to, you know, to really think outside of the box and to think what, you know, again, what is the sound world and what could the visual world be? And I think that can be as individual as each person that, you know, that listens to that music. You know, interesting enough, I just did a video on a very early song, Benedetto Ferrari, and had a very good time putting that song to some Charlie Chaplin video, and, you know, the Stooges and all that kind of stuff, just because the song just was crying out for it for me. But I think it's fun to think outside of the box. So yeah, and I please tell them to contact me, and I'll be of any kind of help I can be.
We have produced in-house so far, but we are considering, you know, as we, you know, continue to expand, what some of these other options might be as we, you know, as we get fancy things and get to, you know, the point where our sort of level of learning hits that glass ceiling and we sort of see what the other possibilities are. But right now that has been, you know, the affordable thing to do as we've been learning what the process is. But it's just this sort of thing that it keeps on expanding in every direction.
Great. I just want to, I'm going to bring back some of the other panelists here, because I think this question really does kind of cross both of your discussions. And I think another question here is basically ways in which you're looking to generate revenue from both YouTube videos and the question specifically references a 25-minute song movie. And so I think that also overlaps, you know, Ars Nova, Celeste, and Mark. You also talked about bringing, you know, putting together online content. Are you looking to, you know, sort of monetize that, or is that sort of just it's like an extension of your marketing or publicity arm where you're able to put these together and have like kind of a footprint beyond Philadelphia? And maybe you can all sort of just answer as you see fit.
There are several models out there right now, and I know other organizations that are specifically putting this on a paywall and monetizing that, and that's, you know, there's all different reasons behind this, but we are putting this up on an on-demand platform absolutely free to our audience. We will be surrounding it with support us now buttons and, you know, ask for, you know, our audience, if they're enjoying this and they would like to help us develop this content, to you know, to invest in what we're doing. But I think we both agree that it's important that this is for everybody, and we are trying to get it to as many people with as low a barrier as possible. The only barrier being, you know, clicking a button and sitting there and watching it.
The other thing is that you know, if you're browsing around Facebook, it's saturated with content right now. There is so much stuff out there. We don't just morally, we don't want to put a paywall right now. It just doesn't feel good. And secondly, there's so much choice. How could we compete with anything if there were a paywall? So, you know, there will be, as Ben said, there will be requests. And as Mark said, people have been very generous when you just, you know, you just offer it and say, you know, here it is. If you want to support it, you know, we can do more of this. So we feel that it will be supported.
In building an audience too, you know, if we're looking at this from the perspective of audience building, and, you know, this is an audience building and marketing tool as well as being just central programming for us. we are hoping to bring people into the product that are outside of our traditional circles right now. And I think in sharing that, we can set a good tone for what the Lyric Fest community is. And I think a lot of our peer organizations are sharing that idea, that this is a time to share art and make an inclusive community decision about doing that. But there's a lot of different decision factors that go in, and different arts groups have different things. And I think that everybody's finding their way, but this is how we decided to approach these particular virtual recitals, which was to make them completely free for everybody.
I wonder if maybe Mark and Celeste can add to that. And I'm also specifically thinking about how you're also, in addition to like the web content, you've got at least one, maybe more recordings in the pipeline for like commercial release, sort of like a record. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Mark, do you want to?
Sure. Well, yes, we are in a really rare and exciting position to invest in our audiences and invest in connecting and establishing an ongoing relationship with them and with new ones. So we think that commitment and investing in that is going to pay dividends in the future. Right now, it is a little difficult to solicit ticket sales, for instance. But we'll quickly get there, and in the meantime, we hope to develop relationships that on the other side create more live music events that yield more sold out performances. We have a 20-year deep archive of really remarkable stuff featuring one-of-a-kind performances and rare performances by extraordinary people, many who have passed. And we have more recently taken artists into the studio to assure that perhaps one of our commissions is well documented and recorded when we have everybody together. We are and we will continue to release those recordings commercially, and hopefully that will help continue to expand our business model. We are starting a Patreon for the first time, and we are looking at the diversity of our programming and the development of the diversity of that programming, whether it's connecting with a visual art audience, whether it's connecting with community in West Philadelphia, whether that is developing recordings that get hopefully written about in national and international publications, to having a podcast that addresses the importance of improvisation and can garner an audience, not
Far
outside
and
of. Say what?
Far and wide.
Far and wide.
Yeah.
Right. So it's less about thinking about how we're going to get another $20 from this Philadelphia audience member, that Philadelphia audience member, and more about this expansion of programming and how it connects with community here in Philadelphia and around the world.
Yeah, and I just want a couple of things there. Just one, yes, we do have a recording that's actually going to be released soon. This was a commission for Richard Richard Abrams, that for Bobby Zankel's Warriors of the Wonderful Sound. We were able to bring in a very large ensemble to the studio and have that recorded, and that will be released very soon. Yes, the other thing is, I think it is important to recognize that these are, in the virtual world that we're in right now, it's so wonderful that we can think about audiences. Clearly, we're very dedicated to Philadelphia, but also think about audiences beyond Philadelphia, and partly to promote an understanding of Philadelphia as a really vital music city. and as having a really vital music history, but as continually contributing to the art form. So yeah, we would like to very much see this continue and be able to, expand the ripples of the effect, while also keeping in mind that, yes, we are very much looking forward to having the wonderful intimacy that only comes with live performance and being in the same space as the performers. So.
And fantastic. Thanks so much. I think we're going to wrap it up there. I'm going to turn it back over to Teresa, but thanks so much for all the panelists for sharing about your organization, and also to all of the people quietly listening, all the attendees. It's great to see your names there and see who's there. Ooh, we got some thunder. Nice.
Thank you for facilitating.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm going to put up a slide. We do have 4 more in this series, but I'm going to turn it back over to Teresa. Thank you all.
I do echo what Dustin just said. Thank you to our presenters today. As an audience member, I in this odd way, I felt very much more so connected to music as never before. I also wanted to close out our time together just to share a little about what is going on at the Presser Foundation, and for prospective grantee organizations of the Presser Foundation, we've made some changes to our special projects grant making area. So first and foremost, we moved up the due date for our applications from October 15th to September 15th. And this move just allows us to pay out our grant funds 2 months ahead of schedule, putting much needed funds into the hands of music organizations as they continue on with their music programming. We've also added criteria for grant consideration, and that is, if I'm just reading the grant criteria that we've listed out, given this environment of uncertainty, the Special Projects Committee is open to receiving creative proposals supporting music programming efforts, which can be realized during this fiscal year. So it's our hope that this Next Movement series, that music organizations across the city will be inspired and perhaps learn a few things and walk away knowing that grant funds are available through special projects that can be applied towards your immediate and creative programming. So just to close out, a very special thank you to Mark and Celeste from Ars Nova, Suzanne and Ben from Lyric Fest. Big thank you to our co-presenter, American Composers Forum Philadelphia chapter, and Dustin's more specifically. We will make this recording available via multiple channels. And finally, as Dustin had mentioned, please consider joining us for the other IDEA forums. Our next one is tomorrow, August 13th at 2 p.m. when we'll hear from Play On Philly and Settlement Music School. So thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.